Mental health has become quite the epidemic in recent times. I suppose it could be said that for most of modern history, there's been an issue with mental health, and that perhaps today's technology is merely exposing to us how great of a problem we have collectively with mental health. And there are a number of ways that you're already aware of that can explain the reason for poor mental health in so many people all over the world. Daily stresses, life, poor treatment, the list goes on. But I think it's worth noting that in a technological era when we're dealing with smartphones, that there is a difference between somebody with a pre-existing mental health condition who uses a smartphone and somebody with no pre-existing mental health condition who then develops one as a result of using a smartphone. So what I want to talk to you about is why this is the case. The assumption that I have heard is that along the lines of, no, it's not the phone, it's social media and how you use your phone and how addicted you are to your phone, etc., etc., etc. Well, obviously the apps are very dangerous for mental health. They do not benefit a person's mental health, generally speaking. And they have even gone as far as causing such great depression in people that they suicide and their lives are simply ruined forever. But the finer point that I wanted to make is that even if you take away the social media apps from inside a phone, the smartphone itself, with texting capability, is already a very harmful threat to mental health. And the reasons for that are things that I discovered during my research about smartphones, the technology of a smartphone, what goes into making a smartphone, and the electromagnetic field that a smartphone generates toward the face and around the brain and the heart. When you open your smartphone or look at a picture of the inside of a smartphone or an iPhone, it's obviously made of a lot of different little components that make it work. In amongst all these components, these components are actually made from highly toxic chemicals. Chemicals like boron, lithium, phosphorus, and we're not talking the nice kind, we're talking the highly toxic kind, we're talking the radioactive kind, we're talking, lithium itself is used in nuclear reactors. I mean, that's the battery. You can actually find a list of all the chemicals that are in a smartphone on the internet, and I have included it in my early research files on this channel. I think the file is called Dirty Power, and there's another one as well. Elements of a smartphone, I think, is what you need to search for. But it's absolutely horrendous when you look at the inside of a phone, what it's actually made from. And you're probably thinking, yes, but we have TVs, we have technology, we have iPads, we have laptops, we have radios, we've had technology, we have fridges, we have washing machines, we have technology that have this stuff in them. We've had it for years. Well, yes, we have, and there's a mental health epidemic that's not getting any better. So when we boil it down to something that pretty much everyone possesses, which is a smartphone, and the proximity at which this device is kept to the face, we have to start asking some serious questions about the impact of this device physically and mentally on a human being. Now, when you turn your phone on, what's automatically happening is that there are apps inside your phone that won't go away. You can't uninstall them. They automatically click to life. And the phone is emitting an electromagnetic field with your identity attached to it. So within that instant, you are already at great risk because you are connected to mentally, emotionally, physiologically connected internally to the information that is already inside your phone and that is now accessing your phone through telecommunications towers. You might be wondering at this point, how is that part of me? I mean, I'm holding my phone out here. It's a separate object. And I'm me, and I know my thoughts, and I don't let my phone rule me. The inconvenient truth is that when we have telecommunication signals that operate at imperceptible levels, traveling at the speed of light, that we no longer have a say in what affects us or not. We are affected because this information is now part of the field of energy that we inhabit. So you turn your phone on and there it is. You're now part of a highly toxic environment. You might start having thoughts that you wonder where they came from. You might feel strangely more emotional about some things than others than you used to. And over a period of time, you might find yourself slipping into general discontent in life or even depression. And this is before you've even ventured into social media. When you communicate via the telecommunications network, the chemicals that are in your phone are kind of activated through the chip and the superconductors and the other elements inside a smartphone that have to pull together to work to send a message or to talk. Now, when we're dealing with lithium and boron and phosphorus and things like this, what happens when the phone is on all day is that these chemicals heat up. They heat up and they disperse their own substance somewhat in an imperceptible form. When we're sending messages, we're not just sending the text message, we're sending every chemical that's in the phone. And I know that at that point you might sort of think, hang on, that doesn't sound right. That's ridiculous. The chemicals are inside the phone. What I'm suggesting is that if you strip back the illusion, the physical illusion of matter, and look at it through the lens of everything being energy, and then look at the chemical elements in a smartphone and perceive them as energy, and then you observe what this chemical energy is doing when it's in use, you will very quickly see that it becomes part of the communication. It becomes part of the message that's being sent. It becomes part of the message that you're receiving. It's very, very, very toxic, highly toxic. In other circles to do with this information, you may have heard of the term brain nuking. That is a whole other podcast, but the battery and the components of the device that are used to brain nuke are radioactive. They're lithium, boron, a whole bunch of other things, and it is the combination of these chemicals that give a little bit of extra effect. Some people have had burns on their face from their smartphone. Other people have had heart attacks, and other people have felt heartburn, a burning sensation in their heart, but they can't quite put their finger on where it's coming from. Nothing shows up on tests. They're physically fine, but what their electromagnetic field around the body is picking up is the burning effect of the chemicals that are, invading at this point the energy field of the human being. Some of you might refer to it as the heart chakra. Mentally, moving on to the impact of texting and looking at a screen to communicate with other human beings. And I just want to stop there and just remind everybody, without intentionally sounding facetious, human beings speak. We have a mouth that talks. We have eyes that express. We have body language that lets other people know what we mean by something. When we take the human being out of the equation of communication with another human being, we are abdicating our humanity, and we are agreeing to communicate in a coded form. If I type a text message and send it, it's getting broken down, sent, and appearing at the other end on the other person's screen as that typing. The typing itself is not sent. It's sent in a coded form, binary, and appearing at the other end on the other person's screen. Now, in that transaction, in that communication, my energy is transmitted as well. This is the nature of energy. It does not stop anywhere. There's no limit. There's no boundary between one thing and another when it comes to energy, unless you start dealing with lead and being able to stand behind a wall of lead to protect yourself from an energy. But I send this message, and if I'm particularly angry, but I'm masking it well, why is it that other person picks up that I'm not exactly happy, even though they're just reading words off a screen? What's that about, right? All sorts of things start kicking in. Our intuition, the unseen things that we are picking up, we are receiving through the mind. The brain is picking up extra information that has also been sent with that communication. And this is one of the other ways that is already integrated into our everyday lives, because how many of us have engaged in texting and been a little worried or suspicious about what the other person might mean, only to find out that we were correct, right? There's no physical proof. Some people might say we just took a lucky guess, but we know better. We get a hunch. We can tell it when it comes off the screen. We read it. Something in the brain goes, that doesn't seem right. Are you okay? Right? Well, how is that? Just magic? No. It's because we're receiving the information. So when we have a phone on all the time, we're dealing with people by text, and we're dehumanizing each other through coded communications, and we are subjecting ourselves to an electromagnetic field emanating from a smartphone that is incredibly toxic and is not aligned with our natural biofield. We're placing ourselves at enormous risk in ways that are imperceptible to us, in ways that sneak up slowly, in ways that suddenly we find ourselves 5-10 years later suffering complete and utter depression without a single good reason. Because in daily life, we seem to have everything. Everything's fine. But we just don't know why we feel so bad all the time. And that's before we even open a social media app. So it's very important for people to understand that your smartphone is not there to help you do anything that we as a global society could not do before and did not do better before. This is a new invention. It's sort of a fad. Because the information about the smartphones and the damage that they do wasn't given out when they were first sold, millions of people became attracted to the shiny thing in their pocket that could access anything, anywhere, anytime, and they could carry the internet with them anywhere, anytime. Who wouldn't want that, right? Well, if everybody knew what it was really doing, no one would want it. Apple self-certify their iPhone. When Apple self-certify their iPhone, what this really means is they have an internal process by which they test the product. It does not go under review by third parties or external scientists. They do it in-house. There is no external review board that checks the safety or the impact on a human being of an iPhone. Apple does it themselves. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're deliberately hurting people. I'm suggesting that whatever their internal process is not thorough enough, and that perhaps there have been findings from the results of some of their experiments and testing of this product that were overlooked and swept aside or not understood properly in terms of what would happen if billions of people had an iPhone and there was a change of voltage at one point in the system, and there was a supermerger of data online, and all the lithium batteries start heating up and exploding. Billions of them. I mean, it's an exaggerated scenario, but stranger things have happened. Or when the Internet of Things happens, you connect all devices in your house. So you've got 6 devices maybe. And every home does this all over the world. And we're dealing with lithium batteries and whatever the next type of battery is. And all that has to happen is a change of voltage at any one point, and boom. We are a planet that is jacked to the hilt with lithium. Lithium walking around in people's pockets, in car batteries, billions of devices, plus all the other chemicals that go into superconductor manufacturing and the hardwiring of technology. It can't be overstated that despite the relationship that you have with your smartphone, that despite the fact that it becomes your go-to, that despite the fact that it is convenient, that despite the fact that for some it is a constant companion, that despite for many there would be a great sense of loss, deep and emotional loss, if you ever had to go without it. Despite these things, it is a threat. It's a threat to your mental health. It's a threat to the mental health of others. It's a threat to your physical health. It's a threat to the physical health of others. It's a threat to our environment, radiation, heating things up. Every single phone counts. We get accumulative radiation. We get much hotter weather. We get a weather system turning upside down. Billions of devices, cumulative radiation. It is a threat to our environment. And just as we could say, well, my car on its own is not that big of a deal, just my car is not going to wipe out nature on this planet. It's true, just one smartphone won't do it either. But when you get billions of them, we're on a hot ball. We're creating our own oven. And for those of you that have just heard me say this and give you a bit more of an insight into the impact that a smartphone has on the electromagnetic field around the brain, on the impact on the eyes, and how this goes straight into our inner physiology when we're looking at something, on how we can magically pick up and get a hunch and you get intuitive vibes and stuff about people just from texting, about how we're dehumanizing each other with this texting for important things instead of having the conversation. It's also very convenient and disrespectful, really, and kind of cowardly that we can no longer show up in life and deal face to face and turn up and not cancel and be respectful and mindful of others in public environments, that we're not pulling out our phone and having a conversation in the supermarket in front of other people. The list goes on. But when I talk about these things with you, it is not to make you feel embarrassed that you ever invested any of your time and energy into a device that you've now been convinced you actually need in order to work or be employed or do anything in life. You were lied to. It's a trend that grew exponentially through popular demand because, as was the case with the internet, the information that was supposed to go with this device before you got it was not given to you. Now, how many people do you know who would have signed up to the internet had they known the truth about what its true function was? No one was told. It's a consumer rights violation. And for Apple to still be selling iPhones without informing the public about the dangers of iPhones in full, not just, oh, keep it so many meters from your face or whatever, but in full, no one would want one. You know, for people who smoke, they go to the supermarket, there's a warning on the packet, right? There's a warning on the packet. And the reason this warning is on the packet, as ugly as it may be, at least in my country, is because big tobacco were eventually exposed for making cigarettes deliberately addictive, for lacing them with all kinds of toxic chemicals that cause all kinds of illnesses in human beings. And they did it knowingly, and they didn't care who it killed. And they did everything that they could to hide it because they wanted to make money. But they were exposed. And now, well, of course, the government makes a lot of money from tobacco as well. So rather than banning the product, they've still got it available, but they put a warning on the front saying it can cause this, and this. You will not even see that with a smartphone or a laptop or an iPad or any other mechanical device, except for obvious ones like don't open or it'll blow up in your face. You will never see a warning that says this iPhone is radioactive. This iPhone can generate harmful electromagnetic fields. This iPhone rates very low on the mental health approval rating for technology. You will never see these warnings because big tech and the people that we're dealing with think that if they have a good idea and it works for them, then everyone should want it, and they're making billions of dollars. So why wreck the party? Why ruin the fun? Let's just keep making money. And as is the case all throughout history, there have been civilizations that have come and gone because they did not look before they leapt. They did not think twice. They did not take the good advice. They ignored reason. They ignored conscience. They did not read the signs. They pushed them aside. And now they're gone. The other thing that I have mentioned in the podcasts previously and in the research is this technology is military technology, okay? When we have a device that's emitting GPS, global positioning system, we're dealing with coordinates which are right there in Google Maps, coordinates that track your phone, your device, whether it's on or off. It's still there because it's in the phone. And that this grid, this geographic coordinates grid around the earth, have nothing to do with the natural energy lines that the earth produces. Nothing to do with them. They're sort of like they're an override. Now, as natural organic beings, us human animals work best when we are in harmony with our natural biofield, nature, the energy of the planet. What mobile technology does is it infects, invades, erodes, and eventually destroys the natural biofield of a planet and of a human being. I don't know how much more simply that I could put it. That is what eventually happens. It is what will eventually happen. That is what is happening. So mental health, the brain is incredible. We have magnetite crystals all through it. We receive all kinds of things through the airwaves all day, every day. And we think they're our own thoughts. We're picking them up. We don't know why we feel so bad. We don't know why we suddenly be euphoric over something. We don't know. We are becoming more and more confused about who we are, but we're telling ourselves that we're getting a better idea of how to be real. Who are we trying to convince? People who are real, already real and in harmony with their natural environment, don't even think about talking about how to be real. So I think what's really happening is we kind of know that there's something that's not right, and it comes out in the conversations that we have about psychology, our psyche, our mental health, autism, Asperger's, the explosion of ADHD, which increased all over the world with smartphones and social media. And nobody's calling it what it is. Nobody wants to call it out for what it is. And yet for decades, when was Facebook started? 2004, for 18 years. There have been warnings from concerned citizens that have made videos about the harmful effects of this technology on a child's mind and on the adult mind. I even knew a guy who developed a tumour on the side of his head. He had to go into hospital to get it removed. They could not tell him what caused it. And while he was in there, he was holding his phone up to the same side of his head where the tumour was. And I asked him, have you thought about not doing that with your phone? It's actually, how often do you use it? He said, I use it all the time. I'm always on my phone. And not being a doctor, I felt it would be negligent of me to suggest that his phone had caused the tumour on the side of his head, but it was right there where his phone goes. And it didn't stop him from using the phone. Now, I mean, really? Where are we? This is a mental illness. If something is bad for us and it's harming us, we're supposed to at least try to stop it. If we have addiction, we're supposed to at least try. We're supposed to weigh up the odds, weigh up the consequences. Ask ourselves if we're happy for our quality of life to be reduced. I can relate to this. Addiction is horrible. Whether it's chocolate, coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, cocaine, or a smartphone, they're all the same thing. They cause harm. For those of you that might be a little bit, put out by what I've shared with you in this podcast, I am sorry. And I do understand and can sort of preempt what your reaction might be, in that, well, we live in a modern world and every time we step out the door, there's something harmful. Like, something's got to get us, right? Fair enough. Something's going to get you. I guess the finer point that I'm making about mental health is that it doesn't have to be that way. There are some things out there in the world we can't do anything about. If we don't like pollution, we can't just suddenly stop all the traffic. We can only take ourselves somewhere where there isn't any. We can make better choices with the foods that we eat, so we're not taking in too many poisonous chemicals. Mental health is incredibly important. It's not just about putting on a few pounds because we ate too many hamburgers. It's not just about having hay fever because of all the dust and pollution in the air. Despite the fact that over 1 million people die every year from pollution-related diseases and cancers. But it's not just about that. Mental health is what drives our whole day. Mental health, when we get up in the morning, that is what drives our whole day. And if we are struggling to feel good, something has to change. If we're on meds because we thought we had depression, only to find out that we were just dehydrated, or that our smartphone is actually the problem, we're altering the physiology of our brain, possibly forever, just so that we can keep using a smartphone. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? It doesn't seem very smart, does it? These devices aren't necessary for most people. I'll go as far as saying for most people they're not necessary. The everyday person doesn't need a smartphone. What do you need that for? You want to go on the internet? Plug in via cable, by broadband, by fibre to the internet when you get home from work, and do your interneting on a proper internet connection instead of sending the internet through mobile phone towers and knocking people's heads off on the way through. You don't need a smartphone. What do you need the internet on for? On your body all day? Because companies wanted to see a photo of this before they'll come and fix this because this, that, and the other. Well, if they want to run their businesses like that, they're going to get an awful shock if people stop using smartphones, because not everybody does. And there's no reason why we should be pushed around by big companies who want to use smartphones as a way of reaching their customers with text message after text message after text message after text message, literal mental assault all the time. Not to mention the invasive and disrespectful nature of just barging into somebody's headspace via text, completely obliterating the previous respect that we showed each other by picking up a telephone, making the phone call, speaking in a nice voice to the person or leaving a message and patiently waiting until they get back to us when it is convenient for them to do so. No. Everybody thinks that a smartphone gives them automatic access to everything they want right now, and what it does is it blows out global respect. Once we start with an erosion of respect for other people, we're harming them. And it leads to depression. If I don't feel respected, I become upset. If it's with somebody that matters. If I've had a full day and the last thing that comes through before I sit down to enjoy my evening is a goddamn text message from a company of some spammer, or even my electricity or my gas, and I already asked them I don't want your text messages, they send them anyway. It's annoying, and everybody after the last 2 years is so stressed out. It is going to take a little while for us to get over this hump, but our patience is running out. So I would ask you to be honest about your use of a smartphone and not to lie to yourself and say things like, I need it for work. I'm pretty sure you don't, and I'm pretty sure there are ways you can work around it. Talk to your employer, explain to him that you're finding it to be an obstruction to your mental health, the device itself. And if there is another way that you can go about getting this done that they would be equally as happy with. It's very simple. I once had a real estate agent bring a normal camera into the place I was renting because I wouldn't let them turn their smartphones on. People will make the exception because it's more important to them to make money at the end of the day. They'll do whatever they have to do to make money. So mental health, these devices are, when turned on, everything that's in them becomes your new reality. Every thought, every word, every video, every song, everything that's online is now intimately connected to your being. You become immersed in the electromagnetic field that is generated, the binary data flying at the speed of light through the air, all around and within you. And I think the internet has made it very clear, at least by the people who use it, that it can be a highly toxic and negative place. And that we were not born to become puppets of an external system that is foreign and alien to the natural structure of our natural world or of our human world. We are still human animals at the end of the day, and we only function well when we are aligned with the natural energy of our planet and each other. It's no surprise to me that there's a pandemic, so-called, of illness that's being spread when everybody has a smartphone and they're physiologically being rewired to a geographic coordinates grid by the United States Department of Defense, which is completely out of whack with how the human body needs to function to stay healthy. And yet the loudest protesters online in favor of rights violations when it comes to this pandemic, the loudest supporters of rights violations are the biggest smartphone addicts. They are already zombified. They are defending the system. They are defending an unnatural, artificial system out of fear. Artificial intelligence is also what we are engaging in and allowing into our mind space and our body when we turn on a smartphone, when we use any form of mobile technology. Even now, I've got my laptop and I'm hardwired in. I don't have Wi-Fi. I don't use Wi-Fi. I won't let anyone in my apartment that uses Wi-Fi. When I turn it off, it's gone. Sadly, though, there are millions of people around me who've got it on all the time. But in not having a smartphone and not using Wi-Fi, I am just that few extra steps away from being abducted fully, mentally and emotionally, by a draconian, militaristic, highly toxic, extremely dangerous mass murder technology machine that has been presented to the world as the future, convenient, and smart. It's not a smartphone, it's a Nazi phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a war phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a white phone. It's not a smartphone, it's the Queen's phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a dumb phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a gun phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a knife phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a disease phone. It's a death phone. It's a coffin. And there it is. So please feel free to go back through the earlier research files on this channel, Dirty Power, and I think there's a couple of other files around the same time that were uploaded near the Dirty Power. It's right back at the beginning, where the elements of the smartphone are exposed. Scattered throughout some of the other research files, it is revealed that Apple self-certify. In fact, I'm sure most of them do, which means no third-party reviews of the devices have actually been conducted at all. They've simply been put onto the market as acceptable consumer products without a single warning aside from just don't hold it too close to your face. And nothing about how long that you should use it for, nothing about keeping it away from vital organs in the body. And this is what they do. This is what they do. They get ahead of themselves. When people like me speak up, they don't want to listen to it. They start slandering, smear campaigns, lying, and silencing tactics. So they don't become embarrassed, so their market share price stays high and they can continue to forget where they are in the universe, forget that they're not God, forget that they're tiny little ants on a pretty big planet, nice hologram, and continue to act like they run everyone's lives. Well, they don't. They know it. And unfortunately, they're just not competent enough to change careers for everyone else's benefit. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you. I felt the need to be particularly succinct and precise in what I was saying because it is very important. It is all true. And I do understand the nature of addiction. I understand why a lot of people feel they need a smartphone. I'm telling you that you probably don't. 9 out of 10 people probably don't. In fact, it's probably 9.9 people out of 10 people that don't. And that reclaiming your life and your health and your mental health is important enough to consider it. Otherwise, you're accepting a life of relative misery just so that you can feel like there's a party happening in your pocket. You're not going to miss out on anything if you don't participate. There's plenty of things going on in life to keep us engaged every day, like work. You know, the things that we love to do, the places we love to go, the people we love to see. And who knows, maybe if we all got happy and positive, we'd find fewer people obsessing over their Facebook feed, standing in line to get COVID tests, and spreading it and just being miserable bastards. Completely just dragging everything down and making everyone feel sick and making everyone sick, lowering other people's immunity through a massive assault on people's minds and physiology through smartphones. Thank you for listening.